Assalammualaikum. Today my group as the opposition will be presenting about stem cell research and tissue engineering. Now there are four main sections. The first would be about the ethical concerns in the Islamic point of view. Second is the ethical concerns in a Western general point of view. Third would be the health risks of using stem cell and tissue engineering. Finally would be the social impacts of stem cell research and tissue engineering. Stem cells are undifferentiated cells that possess the capability to multiply and divide at a high rate that could give rise to new cell lines. Now there are two types. The first is embryonic stem cells and the second is induced pluripotent stem cells. Tissue engineering is the modern sciences technology that is combined with molecular biology, resulting in the regeneration of new tissues or cells. Now, the aim of this topic is to address the underlying ethical issues and risks in tissue engineering and stem cell therapy in an attempt to prove that these methods are unsafe and unethical. Now, from an Islamic point of view, a major issue with stem cell research is the destruction of embryo cells, or specifically human embryo cells. And the way that it is done is through abortion. And some Islamic scholars, they argue that it is unethical to destroy human embryos because they still have life values. And in some places, such as Egypt, they actually ban the use of human embryo stem cells and they use umbilical cords as an alternative. Next is the issue of using stem cells from unslaughtered animals or unpermitted sources such as swines or canines in the production of artificial meat for human consumption. And this is prohibited in the Quran as these sources can be harmful for human beings. And another aspect that is usually ignored is the use of animal testing for research purposes. This is an act of cruelty by itself, and especially hamsters and mice are the two most commonly used animals for research testing. And according to Razi and Sha'ban 2016, Islam disfavors the act of killing animals offhandedly as they can also feel pain just like us. Now moving on to the second point, much like the Islamic point of view, the ethical concerns in the Western point of view, they also state about the destruction of human embryos. And advocates that deny stem cell research, they say that destroying human embryos for research is equal to murder and is therefore not acceptable. And another aspect is also the need for consent from the human research subjects. Now, consent is the basic requirement for conducting human subject research. Now, when people take part in clinical trials and clinical testings and whatsoever, they need to know all of the details and what their rights are in that testing. Furthermore, confidentiality must also be protected because it might subject the donors or the subjects to unwanted publicity or harassment. Now, moving on to the third point, which is the health risks associated with stem cell research and tissue engineering. Now, Herbert, Kwa and Hamzah 2011, they explained that humorous or cancerous cell formations are often caused by the stem cell's ability to replicate and differentiate into different cells. Now, cancer cells, they have the ability to move from one place to another. They can move from the target sites to a non-target sites, which might lead to long-lasting damage. Besides that, there is also the potential for the host to have a negative immune response or a rejection towards the foreign stem cells. Now, this could lead to a type of disease called GVHD, graft versus host disease, which is when the host rejects the administered cells. So furthermore, a case was reported in Canada by Woodworth, Jenkins, Barron and Hatch 2019, in which a man is suffering from a tumor growth in his spinal cord due to a stem cell therapy that he had 12 years prior. And apparently, This happened due to the administration of unsuitable stem cells at the target site. Finally, there is also the possibility of the patient having an infection due to the administration of infected cells or tissues, or the transmission of adventitious agents during the preparation of the stem cells and engineered tissues. Now, moving on to the final section. Usually when people talk about stem cell research or tissue engineering, they usually talk about the ethical or moral dilemmas. However, an equally important question is what would happen to us, to the society. So the first impact is the insufficient use of funds and time. According to Allison 2016, advocates denying stem cell research argue that the expensive cost and exhaustive time process should be better spent on more pressing matters. This argument is a logical argument, as many around the world face major problems and diseases, especially now with the current COVID-19 pandemic. More emphasis should be used to stop the spread of the virus. Next is the third impact, which is the possibility of having a treatment that can extend lifespan or even give immortality. However, due to the current technology limitations, we do not know what it is like to have immortality, but it can be theorized. Now, stem cell and tissue engineering therapies are not cheap. They are expensive. And according to the World Health Organization, around half of the world's total population cannot afford for basic healthcare. So since most of the people cannot afford to pay for stem cell or tissue engineering therapy, the question is to be asked: do stem cell and tissue engineering treatments be banned for everyone because not everyone can afford it? And Davis 2004 argues that the burdens of those who cannot afford to do so are too inconsequential to deny the potentially life-saving, life-extending treatments for those who can afford it. Now, the third impact is the illegal procurement of stem cell resources. What it means by stem cell resources is human embryonic stem cells. Now, since stem cell research is still in the early clinical testing phases, it is impossible to know if such an outcome will occur. So the closest approximation that can be used is the illegal organ trading in the black market. Now, according to Pearson, this problem is an ever-increasing issue since major countries like the United States or China are involved in the illegal organ trading. Now, another reason why the illegal black market trading is still booming is because of medical tourism, which is the act of going to another country for medical purposes. Furthermore, a case study was done by Mendoza 2013, which surmises that basically the victims who are forced to donate their organs to brokers or to the syndicates are actually those who are on the poverty line. They are poor to buy food and to pay bills, so they are forced to sell their organs. Finally is the possibility of zoonotic infection. Now, zoonotic infection is the transfer of animal diseases crossing the species border into humans, and one such example is the COVID-19 virus. One possible means of zoonotic infection is the use of bovine serum albumin or BSA in stem cell culture. Now, due to the outbreak of bovine spongiform ankylopathy (BSE) in cattle, so serums from those cows could be tainted with the prions that can cause a modified form of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in humans. And another possibility of zoonosis is due to the human stem cells which grow on animal cells with a layer during culture. Now, the concern is transplanting human stem cells and engineered tissues which have been in contact with non-human animal cells. They can constitute a form of xenotransplantation. Now, the problem is that it might transfer viruses or certain pathogens from animals into the human host cell. So, in summation, it cannot be denied that stem cell and tissue engineering treatments are revolutionary and very beneficial treatments that can give limitless potential in the right hands. Therefore, ethical committees should be aware of the dangers and implement strict guidelines and rulings to prevent any unethical conduct in the pursuit of science. Thank you for listening, and that is all from us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.